We're going back to Ed Lavandera, who's at the University of Texas at Austin. Ed, I hope you can hear me. We see that there is law enforcement that appears to have moved closer there to protesters on the South Mall at the campus. This follows quite an escalatory interaction between law enforcement and protesters last week. Ed, what are you seeing?
Well, Brianna, state troopers have now encircled the small encampment inside the South Mall of the University of Texas campus. This is the encampment inside here that the students had set up a little more than an hour ago. And now we're witnessing as the state troopers have come in and encircled the encampment. So what happens next is not clear. Obviously, protesters are chanting at the officers the state troopers to get off the campus. But it is clear here in the last 30 minutes or so that law enforcement has been trying to figure out the plan to disperse this crowd from the situation. Obviously, this harkens back to what took place here on the University of Texas campus last Wednesday, where more than 60 people were arrested, which became a very tense and very violent situation. So this is the situation unfolding. We have state troopers and then local police circling the state troopers with their bicycles here at the scene, looking to try to move our way around as much as we can. I would, let's see here. I don't see from anywhere around on either side of the circle where any of the troopers or the officers are making their way to make any arrests at this point. Right now it's just another standoff where the troopers have moved from about 20, 30 yards away and encircled this encampment. And you see the protesters inside. They're actually using tables that were set up here on the South Lawn area for much of the morning as they were making zines, posters, and that sort of thing. They were having poetry readings. And then all of a sudden, these tables were picked up and used as a barricade to keep people from entering this small little area where a number of tents have been set up. Obviously, the footprint of this is not incredibly significant, but obviously a symbolic situation here as these protesters and this group has been told for days now that this kind of protest would not be allowed on the University of Texas campus. And that is why university officials say they called in the state troopers and the Department of Public Safety last week to prevent any kind of long-term encampment here on the grounds of the university. And obviously this area of this campus is extremely significant because this is the area where in the coming weeks the university-wide commencement will be held. So this is one of the most prominent spots on this university campus. But right now, as we continue to see the standoff, you see the police officers encircling the state troopers with bicycles to keep the crowd that is not inside this encampment away from these protesters. The protesters chanting at the troopers to get off our campus. Obviously, they're not going anywhere, and this is a situation that we will have to see how it unfolds. It became very tense, often violent last week with a lot of shoving, pushing, more than 60 people arrested last week for disorderly conduct. Those misdemeanor criminal charges have been dropped by the county attorney, and the group that had originally organized all of this, Brianna, has been temporarily suspended on an interim basis. So obviously that is a situation that also angered many of the people who were in this student organization as well. But obviously that is going to I would imagine that interim status could be changed here in the coming weeks and days. So almost beside the point at this moment as we continue here, Brianna, to watch this standoff kind of unfold here as we wait to see exactly how state troopers are going to handle and clear out this group from the South Mall here in the University of Texas.
Hey, Ed, it's Alex. Do you have a sense of whether the state troopers or the police have given some kind of warning, any indication of what they're preparing to do? Clearly, as you say, they're looking to isolate those protesters there and essentially surround them. And those state troopers certainly look like they are at the ready. And we have seen some violence from them in the past. They have those riot helmets on, their batons at the ready. But what kind of warning, if any, have they given to those protesters?
About 30 minutes ago, I think, there was text and phone notification urging people that they needed to disperse from this area, that anyone who did not disperse would be arrested. That was done over the text communication, the university-wide notification. And then just moments ago, there was someone who came on with a loudspeaker telling this group that they needed to disperse. And so there have been warnings sent out here periodically within the last hour or so. So those warnings have been sent out. Presumably all the protesters that were inside this encampment area have also received that notification. So now we will see just how much more time these officers give the protesters from remaining in this area.
And Ed, just to point out, you are very close to the Capitol. And as we learned last week, when the Texas Department of Public Safety officers responded, it was at the request of the university, they said, but at the direction of Republican Governor Greg Abbott. And I wonder what, especially in light of the fact that a number of other campuses across Texas did not see a similar response, but UT Austin did, what are the political overtones that are playing out? What is the political debate like there in the Capitol about what's going on?
Well, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, has been very clear and obviously hold on. Wait 1 second. We're seeing officers starting to try to break their way. Here we go. See officers there breaking away the tables and starting to make their way inside the encampment. We've seen one person taken into custody just here off my shoulder and is being zip tied right now as we speak. And we see state troopers trying to keep the onlookers away to allow other officers to get inside that encampment. Many of the protesters continuing to lock arms, and we've seen here over the last hours that many of the organizers in this group were urging people to stand on the edge of the encampment and to lock arms to be able to keep officers and anyone else from getting inside the circle. But now it appears that it's the state troopers that are setting up the barrier around that is allowing local police officers to get inside there, and they're starting to break away the tables that were set up here for that educational period. And we have more state troopers trying to make their way through here. Give me 1 moment, Brianna, as we try to kind of assess the situation. This is an encircled encampment, probably about 20 yards across from one side to the other. So it's not a large scene that we're seeing here, but slowly the local police department, the university police, as well as Austin police, breaking away these tables that the protesters had been using to essentially serve as a wall around this encampment. So we've seen that kind of initial penetration by law enforcement here on the grounds, as some onlookers continue to yell at the state troopers that are allowing that. But it doesn't appear from this area that we're at that any more people have been taken into custody. We've seen one. We hear a group of people cheer, asking for a medic at this point, so I don't know exactly what has happened, but I don't see any other police officers at this point trying to break their way into the encircled area. Let's see if they continue